think a lot of people forget that before Mortal Kombat became a high-budget cinematic action fantasy thing, it was genuinely terrifying. I honestly believe that Mortal Kombat, especially the older titles, weren't just fighting games, there were also horror games in disguise. Now don't worry, I'm not trying to be one of those video essay philosophers and find deep meaning in a game where people yell gibberish and throw fireballs. Mortal Kombat is my second favorite fighting game series just after the King of Fighters. I don't play a lot of fighters, mainly because I suck at them, so I mostly stick around for the lore and interesting characters. Mortal Kombat has that in spades, from political intrigue to interpersonal relationships between the fighters and very unique locations. One of my earliest sentient memories is being maybe 2 or 3 years old. I remember watching one of my older brothers play Mortal Kombat 4 on the PS1. Well, being a baby and all, I had no idea what I was looking at, but the weird battle screams and Goro stomping around scared the daylights out of me. From then on, I had a mild fear of MK4 growing up. Well, it was small fear mixed with intrigue. See, me and the other kids in primary school would talk about MK4 like it was an urban legend, the forbidden game only our big brothers could play. We tried to learn everything we could from guidebooks and share our stories on the playground of what we thought their world could be like. When I was about 7, there was a kid in the neighborhood that had the game and let us play it on their home computer. He was a little bigger than us, but not quite old enough to hang out with our big brothers. But he was pretty nice to us younger kids. He'd go out and leave us to play the game on his computer until he got back. That's how I actually got to play the games the first time and learn about the characters. I would go home and try to draw them, chat with my friends about scary stages, fatalities, special moves, and argue about who looked the coolest. And as I grew up more, to maybe around 13, I was finally able to get the game for myself. And man, it still freaked me out. There was just something uncanny about the experience I couldn't quite understand. I enjoyed it though. The sound design, the atmosphere, the music, the stages. MK has always had really unique fight locations since a lot of the arenas take place in Outworld. Despite the story of MK4 being set mainly on Earth, the stages here still stood out to me. Getting into the stage design and the game's music as well, there's the man who started it all, Goro's lair. Looking at Goro's lair in the newer games, it's still a creepy location and definitely a place you do not want to be in. But here it feels much more visceral, more dangerous, grungy. Feels isolated, like there's no way out. You're trapped in here with that behemoth, and that stage music is so gas. The Elder God stage is the temple where Raiden and Fujin go to speak to the other Elder Gods. So you'd have these intense faces judging your every move in combat, pitting you to fight to the death for their own amusement. At least that's what it looked like to me. Reptile's lair also look otherworldly, man, like some necromancer's playground. The fire pit with its severed heads on the ground you could pick up and throw on your opponent. I'm also surprised there wasn't a stage fatality here. You'd think it would make sense to throw your opponent into the flame, but And there's this one thing that used to scare me so much back in the day. It made me deathly afraid to lose in the game, and that was the continue music. That dreadful cutscene of the player falling into the abyss while this menacing ass song is blaring in the background. And then that final blood-curdling scream they would do when they plummet. Nasty work. The music and sound design in these older games was something else. Dan Forden, the lead sound engineer for the franchise, is such a genius. Everything about these songs, from low hums, enchanting loops, heavy traditional sounding drums, to implementing dreadful chants and death screams in the music, is all crazy work. The music in these MK games were nothing like the typical fighting game music you'd hear. They somehow fit the aesthetic, art, and atmosphere of Mortal Kombat so well. As the newer games moved away from that otherworldly horror aesthetic of the older games into a more action fantasy setting, the newer games mainly accompany an electric guitar and orchestral sound design, so leaning more into the typical blockbuster soundtrack sort of feeling. So sometimes the songs just kind of blend into each other and not too many of them stand out for me. I'm not criticizing them at all, just that the music in the arcade era games and MK4 especially was something else. It most likely wasn't intentional here, but the technical limitations did add to the uncanny feeling of the game's art style. There was something about those stiff robotic movements and the low poly faces that made the characters look less like people and more like reanimated corpses. Games like Silent Hill 1 used fog to mask the short draw distance and technical limitations of the PS1.
Hey guys, I'm in
Silent Hill.
just hanging out.
Have you seen a little girl around here? Short, black hair, 7 years old?
This fog in turn created a very foreboding and claustrophobic atmosphere while running through the monster-ridden town of Silent Hill. And I think MK4's busted graphics ape that feeling a little bit, but maybe I'm also overcompensating for its limitations. Mortal Kombat 4 didn't release with as high acclaim as the previous games. It was criticized for its poor graphics even for the time, limited character roster, changes to the fighting style, the 3D graphics feeling tacked on, and other things. But despite that, I really admire the game and my personal relationship with it, as well as its updates to the franchise, like expanding more on the Elder God lore, having some of the new characters being pretty interesting like the sorcerer Quan Chi, and being the first game in the franchise to have endings that connected to each other. Mortal Kombat 4 will always hold a special place in my heart. That's why it's still fun to pick it up and play every once in a while. Well, thank you for watching and or listening this far into the video. Hope you have a nice rest of your day. Try to exercise, go out in the sun when you can, and eat veggies. Everything's going to be okay.
Thousands of years ago, in a battle with the fallen elder god known as Shinnok, I was responsible for the death of an entire civilization. To rid all realms of Shinnok's menace, I waged a war that plunged the earth into centuries of darkness and banished Shinnok into a place called the Netherrealm. Now, after Shao Kahn's defeat at the hands of Earth's warriors, Shinnok has managed to escape his confines in the Netherrealm. The war is now being fought once again. Only this time, it can be won by mortals.